I brought back Cesc Fabregas to Arsenal, and his first major signing wasn't Benjamin Sesko, it was Viktor Gyökeres. And it hasn't been going well. Will Gyokeres flop in the Premier League? Let's find out. Before we dive in, only 16% of you are subscribed, so go ahead and make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a video. Well, it's only a matter of time, and for Fabregas, it's come much sooner than expected. The Fabregas out campaign has officially started. Arsenal fans have gone through Wenger out, Emery out, Arteta out, and now Fabregas out. After a disappointing 1-2-2 start, the Emirates Stadium has turned sour. Truth be told, many fans never wanted him in the first place, and the resounding sentiment around North London is that Fabregas is already tearing down everything Arteta spent 5 years building. While a few optimistic voices can still be heard, the overwhelming majority of the fanbase is united in their disapproval. Sitting in 12th place and already out of the League Cup, Fabregas knew he needed to turn things around fast. Fortunately, a matchup against newly promoted Sunderland offered the perfect bounce-back opportunity. Bukayo Saka gave Arsenal an early lead, and Viktor Gyökeres finally got off the mark with his first goal for the club, as the Gunners ran out 3-1 winners. The Swede had a shaky start to life in North London, but both his and Arsenal's fortunes seemed to be turning around. The win sparked a much-needed mini-resurgence. Arsenal went on to win 3 in a row following their defeat to Manchester City. While Leandro Trossard was behind Martinelli in the pecking order, he came up clutch with a late winner in a gritty 1-0 result against Leeds. Meanwhile, Martinelli himself was flying under Fabregas. The Brazilian netted a brace in a dominant 3-0 victory over Bournemouth, and had quickly become one of the only bright spots of the season. His newfound form even had some fans forgetting the club's failure to sign a new left winger. And the improvement in form had come at the perfect time for Fabregas, with a massive match against Liverpool looming. Arsenal still weren't where they wanted to be, but momentum was building as they climbed up to 7th place. Meanwhile, Liverpool were flying, sitting second in the table and firmly in the title race with Manchester City. They had become the de facto favorites thanks to an impressive summer window, with new signings like Florian Wirtz, Milos Kerkez, and Jeremy Frimpong, who had all instantly elevated the squad. But their biggest signing was arguably Benjamin Sesko, Arsenal's former transfer target, and the man they passed on in favor of Viktor Gyökeres. Early on, that decision had already aged poorly, as Sesko had hit the ground running, scoring 7 goals in the first 8 matches. In contrast, Gyokeres had only managed 1 goal. Reports from the summer suggested that Arsenal preferred Gyokeres since he was a finished article, as the club feared that Sesko was too raw to contribute immediately. Unfortunately, that couldn't have been any further from the truth, and predictably, Arsenal became the subject of heavy criticism from their own fans and an easy target for mockery across the footballing world. Still, Fabregas now had a chance to flip the script. A win against Liverpool, the reigning champions and current title favorites, wouldn't be just a turning point. It could be the defining moment in his early tenure. The next 90 minutes had the potential to reshape the entire trajectory of Arsenal's season and Fabregas' credibility. And so, what could have been a turning point quickly turned into humiliation. Liverpool dominated Arsenal in the first half and never looked back, cruising to a comfortable 2-0 victory. Benjamin Sesko once again showed why Arsenal had pursued him, while Viktor Gyökeres endured a nightmare performance. The Swede was isolated for most of the match, struggling to create anything for himself, and the few half chances that did come his way were squandered. It was another frustrating outing for Arsenal's big money signing. Meanwhile, Liverpool's new arrivals did what Arsenal's couldn't, and delivered for their team. The result left a chorus of boos echoing around the stadium, as Arsenal's faithful grew restless of Fabregas. It was another opportunity to turn the season around that had slipped through their fingers. Fabregas was in serious danger of losing control of the season. What began as a slow start was now threatening to spiral into a disastrous campaign. And unfortunately for Arsenal, things were in danger of getting even worse. Next up were 2 of the most difficult away matches of the season, trips to St. James Park and Stamford Bridge. If Fabregas had any hope of salvaging the season, his side would need to find a way to take points from both sides. And so the fixture that had caused Mikel Arteta so many issues in the past now welcomed Cesc Fabregas for the first time. St. James's Park was predictably rowdy, with the Magpies eager to take advantage of a dejected Arsenal squad. Surprisingly, Gyokeres was dropped from the starting lineup for the first time all season, with Kai Havertz coming into the starting 11. It was a tight game with the only real chance of the first half coming from a well-worked Arsenal move that saw Nick Pope deny Havertz decent effort. The pace would pick up in the second half, as the patient phase of play from Arsenal saw them work the ball around the box, before Zubimendi chipped Havertz through, only for the German to rush his shot with a team header. Newcastle finally got their first big chance of the game, countering a disjointed Arsenal defense, but Jacob Murphy wasted a golden opportunity to take the lead. The game continued to swing back and forth as Bukayo Saka picked up the ball and nearly carried Arsenal's victory, only to be denied by a strong left hand by Nick Pope, stopping what surely would have been the game winner. But alas, while they kept Newcastle at bay, Arsenal simply couldn't find a breakthrough. Still, it was a much-needed draw and a valuable point, as Fabregas could now hope to turn around the season after finally walking away from a big game with something to show for it. Ah, crap. Yet another late game collapse, this time without the excuse of a red card, left Arsenal languishing in 10th place. But there is no time for self-pity, as Fabregas was about to return to his former club, Chelsea. It was a move that forever labeled him as a snake in the eyes of many Arsenal supporters. And with a poor start to the season, some fans are now joking that he'd been a Chelsea plant all along. But for Fabregas, this was no laughing matter. He needed results, and fast. And in what some viewed as a sign of desperation, he chose a major clash to make a big tactical change. For the first time all season, Arsenal lined up in a 4-4-2, as Fabregas scrambled to salvage a sinking campaign. Fabregas returned to Stamford Bridge to a sarcastic welcome, as the struggles at Arsenal continued to torpedo the club's title hopes. Arsenal versus Chelsea remains one of the oldest top rivalries in the country, with both London sides battling it out for decades. However, this was the first time in a couple years that Chelsea entered the fixture as clear favorites. Nevertheless, Fabregas was desperate for his team to finally click and start putting things together. Unfortunately, Arsenal faced the same recurring issues, struggling to find a breakthrough. And once again, Gyokeres turned in a dreadful league performance, putting a clear-cut chance wide in the first half, a moment that could have changed the game. His only other effort was a tame shot after failing to create any meaningful opportunity for himself. It was becoming increasingly worrying for Arsenal, as Gyokeres was clearly struggling to adapt to the Premier League. But there are bigger problems ahead. A reckless tackle on Saka from Enzo Fernandez threatened to completely derail an already horrific season. Arsenal's main man stayed down and was ultimately forced off with an injury. And right on cue, Arsenal collapsed at the death, again, this time falling victim to a late strike from Pedro Neto. It was the fourth time this season they had conceded a late goal, a deeply troubling trend for Fabregas, whose side simply couldn't see out games. The match ended 1-0 to Chelsea, and there is no more words to describe the pit of despair that Arsenal had fallen into under Cesc Fabregas. With the last two defeats, Arsenal remained in 10th place and firmly stuck in the mid-table. The only positive to come out of the last two matches were that they were away games, which meant Fabregas and Arsenal couldn't get booed out of their own stadium. Otherwise, Arsenal were complete crap. And as if things couldn't get any worse, the club confirmed that Bukayo Saka had suffered a hyperextended knee and would be sidelined for 6 weeks. Arsenal's season was unraveling. Their star boy was injured, they couldn't hold on to leads, and their marquee summer signing was floundering in the league. However, there was a saving grace for Fabregas, the Champions League. In stark contrast to their domestic form, Arsenal had been thriving in Europe. 6 games into the group stage, Arsenal sat comfortably in first, with an unbeaten record of 4-2-0. They'd recorded statement wins against European heavyweights, including a measure of revenge against PSG, who had knocked them out in last season's semifinals, and a gritty away victory in Naples. And leading the charge in Europe was surprisingly Viktor Gyökeres. The Swede was struggling to find his footing in England, but looked like a completely different player in the Champions League. He was among the competition's top scorers with 6 goals in just 6 games. He was instrumental in the PSG win, netting the decisive goal at home, and showed nerve of steel in Naples with a composed finish that sealed the points. Whether it was down to confidence or simply benefiting from more space against European opposition, Gyokeres' continental form was, quite frankly, one of the only reasons Fabregas was still in the job. And just when all hope was starting to fade away for Arsenal, Fabregas, and even Gyokeres himself, the European form finally began to carry over into the league. A back-and-forth game against Nottingham Forest at home was seemingly heading towards even more drop points, before Gyokeres finally broke his scoring duck in the league, scoring a late winner that handed Arsenal a vital 3 points. His form would continue into a London derby against West Ham, where he once again scored the decisive goal in a 2-1 win. Things were finally looking up for Fabregas and Arsenal, and just in time as they headed towards a busy December that would kick off with a massive clash against Manchester United. Both sides stepped onto the carpet of the Emirates looking to rectify their stuttering campaigns. For Arsenal, Fabregas was still searching for his first victory over a major club, having failed to do so against Manchester City, Liverpool, Chelsea, Tottenham, and Newcastle. Meanwhile, Manchester United found themselves stuck in the mid-table alongside Arsenal, hoping to reignite their top 4 ambitions. With Saka out, Fabregas took a risk, shifting Odegaard out wide and handing a surprise start to the inexperienced Nico Paz in the number 10 role. And the Argentinian wonderkid nearly made the perfect impression, sliding the ball past the United keeper and seemingly opening the scoring, only for the flag to go up. Unfortunately for Arsenal, replays confirmed the linesman had gotten the call right, with no need for VAR to intervene. Arsenal would officially open the scoring soon after, thanks to a brilliant run from Martinelli. The Brazilian tore through United's defense and finished with composure to make it 1-0, as Fabregas finally looked poised to claim his first big win. Gyokeres nearly sealed the victory, but the Swede's shot rattled the post, keeping the scoreline tight. But thankfully for Arsenal, the final whistle came, and Martinelli's goal proved to be decisive. At last, Fabregas had secured his first major win against a top Premier League side, and hope began to return to the Emirates as fans began to believe that maybe, just maybe, Arsenal's season could still be salvaged. And so, for the second time this season, Arsenal were experiencing a much-needed mini resurgence, having won 3 games on the bounce. The run saw them climb to 8th place in the table. Fabregas was well aware that they had to capitalize on the momentum, unlike earlier in the season when they lost to Liverpool and derailed their progress and triggered another slump. Fortunately, Arsenal found the breakthrough they needed at Craven Cottage, where a stunning, world-class finish from Kai Havertz gave them a lead. The result was sealed by Nico Paz, who scored his first goal for the club, a vital, tone-setting moment that sealed a 2-0 victory over Fulham. The victories over Manchester United and Fulham helped spark a perfect December for the Gunners, who won every match that month, and it is by far the most encouraging stretch under Fabregas, as Arsenal finally looked like a team finding their rhythm. The once stunted attack was now generating real chances and finishing them. And with Bukayo Saka returning from injury against Everton, the psychological boost was irresistible. Alongside Martinelli, Arsenal's wide duo began to terrorize defenses again, restoring some much-needed firepower. Still, one glaring issue remained: Viktor Gyökeres. The Swede continued to struggle in domestic competitions, managing only 1 additional Premier League goal, with a tap-in against Brentford bringing his league tally to just 3 goals. Fabregas had yet to figure out how to unlock his striker's strengths, and Gyokeres himself was clearly struggling to adapt to Premier League defenses. He typically thrived running in behind, but in Fabregas' system that often faced low blocks and demanded more technical link-up play, he found himself isolated. His poor first-touch finishing and lack of composure in the box led to many squandered chances, along with heavy touches, scuffed shots, or being muscled off the ball before he could even get a shot off. Nevertheless, Arsenal entered the new year in 6th place, and finally within reach of the top 4. But the optimism took a hit in their first match of January, as they fell 3-2 away to Brighton. But there was no time to dwell on the loss, as the North London derby was just around the corner. After the embarrassing 2-0 loss to Spurs earlier in the season, Fabregas was eager for his side to get revenge, and more importantly, continue climbing the table. Yet it was Spurs who looked more threatening early on, with Dominic Solanke dragging a shot wide just 25 minutes in. 5 minutes later, Solanke fluffed his lines again, this time sending his shot soaring over the bar. Concern began to grow among Arsenal fans, as the team looked shaky, almost as if they had reverted back to their early season form. But those fears were soon quelled, as a tenacious play from Martinelli saw the Brazilian force a Tottenham error and hand Arsenal the lead in the North London derby. Martinelli was enjoying a consistently stellar season under Fabregas, finally appearing to take the next big step in his development. Still, Tottenham weren't about to roll over for their bitter rivals. They pushed for an equalizer, with David Raya producing several massive saves to preserve the lead. Unfortunately for Arsenal, Solanke finally converted one of his chances, heading home from a corner to level the score. Arsenal, however, remained relentless in their pursuit for the winner, and finally they caught a break. A reckless side tackle in the box handed them a golden opportunity to seal the match. Up stepped captain Martin Odegaard with a chance to secure a massive Derby Day victory, only for Vicario to block his penalty as the goalkeeper looked set to become the hero of the derby. Yet there is still drama to come, as Udogie's careless play saw Saka strip him of the ball and square it to Gyokeres, who squandered a golden chance. It was a must-score moment for the striker who had been signed to solve Arsenal's goal-scoring woes, but once again he let his team down in the league. And so Tottenham survived to hold on for a 1-1 draw. For once, Fabregas wasn't to blame for the drop points, as Odegaard and Gyokeres squandered massive opportunities to win the game out to death. While the draw was disappointing, the past couple of months had marked a significant upturn in form for Arsenal. Despite lingering concerns over Gyokeres' struggles in the league, Fabregas was finally beginning to steady the ship. 6th place was still far from where Arsenal fans expected to be at the halfway point of the season. But with the form that Fabregas' side was showing, closing the gap on the top 4 and even the league leaders suddenly looked like a realistic goal.